The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Greetings from Minneapolis. Coming to your cordless. It's Tuesday night, December 2nd, 2025. It's 9:01 on the East Coast of the United States, 6:01 on the West Coast, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8:01 Central Time. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night, episode number 299, which means you know what happens tomorrow, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So anyway, what's the weather like here? Shit. That's what it's like. It's crap. The temperature right now, the last I checked, is 15 degrees at 8:01 in the evening on December 2nd. Now, I was telling my wife today, we've had below zero temperatures before December 2nd, and we've had snow before, a lot of snow before December 2nd. But I can't remember the last time we had both together. I mean, right now it's like January here, and that's not saying a lot because that's the worst. January is the bottom. So, it's supposed to be it's supposed to warm up by Friday, but Thursday morning they're saying that the low temperature Thursday morning is going to be 7 below, and I'm not talking that wimpy wind chill crap. This is the actual temperature. So anyway, I went out shopping this afternoon. It was not pleasant. Let's put it that way. Now, I got something I got to tell you about last night's show. We did a show last night. It wasn't transmitted anywhere, and it wasn't recorded. It was not recorded. Our distributor did not record it. They're supposed to automatically record the show, and they transmit it out, and none of those things happened. And usually we pre-record at least part of it, usually the interviews. But last night, Jonathan Lockwood, he had a change of schedule. It came on live. We did the whole show live. All it was 90 minutes. We did it live. No one saw it, and no one's going to see it. It's off in the ether somewhere. It's lost forever. So my apologies for that. I'm counting that as a show. It was number 298. I'm counting it because we did it, even though nobody saw it. Whatever. Shit happens. Now, 300 shows in, that's happened 3 times. So 1%, I guess, of the shows we've done. One of those 3 times, we had recorded most of the show and was able to reconstitute it, and I did post it for archive for on-demand viewing. But the other time and last night, I lost the whole thing. So anyway, hoping that doesn't happen tonight. So our guest tonight is Gary Benoit. He's the editor-in-chief of the New American Magazine, which is not actually that new. It's a subsidiary of the John Birch Society, and he's coming on. We pre-recorded this thing in this afternoon, so he's coming on in a few minutes. Fascinating discussion, as we usually have with most of the people coming on the show are very accomplished, so they have things to say, and Gary's no exception. Tomorrow night is our 300th show, and so we're doing the whole thing live, and we're gonna have the phone lines open the entire time. You can call in, tell me what you think, tell me you don't like my hair. There's some guy who was bugging me about that for years. Whatever. Our guest of record will be Tim Conaway. It's pretty much going to be a repeat of my 70th birthday show from October 9th, and which was, of course, only 7 weeks ago, and we're going to do it again. So because we got nothing left to do here, it's December, and things You know how it is we're winding down for the holidays. We are. So anyway, but yeah, you can call in. We got a bunch of surprises. I'm under the impression Santa might call in. I've heard that. It's a rumor. We're going to be playing the Gun Hill Road video. Close my ears. Michael Harrison, our longtime friend and the publisher of Talkers Magazine, he's been a member of that band. I don't know how long he's been a member. That band has been running for over 50 years. They started in the 1970s. They were one of those psychedelic rock bands from the 1970s. Then ask your dad, okay? and they're still running. And and partly because I think it's partly because of Michael's influence. They have carved a niche providing bumper music to talk radio stations. So it's really weird. They get their music played not on music radio stations. They get their music played on talk radio stations because usually they're doing songs about kind of sort of the talk music experience. And this one's called "Close My Ears." They also have really great music videos, and they started using AI for the music videos well before anybody even knew what that was. So we're gonna play that video tomorrow night. I asked Michael if he wanted to call in. He says he can't, unfortunately. But so we're going ahead. We're gonna play the video anyway. And so yeah, a bunch of surprises. And you too. You can call in also. Yeah, I like that if you did. I'll tell you the number right now. It's 325 call Jim. That's 325-225-5546. But you can remember 325 call Jim. You don't have to be watching. We're gonna be live from 9 to 10:30 Eastern. That's 8 to 9:30 Central. And just call in. Go ahead. Now, if you call that number when we're not on the air, when we're not live, you can leave a 2-minute voicemail message, and I hope you do. You should call in and complain about crap like your life and stuff, or your spouse, or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. Because I know you. I know you're complaining. I know that. And we're taking Thursday night off. Not because it was our 300th show. We're taking Thursday night off because I'm taking my 101-year-old mother to the ballet. I'm taking her to see the Nutcracker. My niece and I are doing that. So, and that should be fun. And she's 101. So next week on Monday the 8th, next Monday, Murray Sabrin, our old friend, the economist, is coming by. Usually I have Murray was the very first guest on our very first show for this video cycle. He was a longtime guest at Conk News, and I don't know. He just happened to, I'm good friends with Murray. He's a good guy, and I asked him to be on the very first show, and he said yes, and he was. And so I've usually dragged him back for these anniversary shows. He couldn't be here tomorrow night for Wednesday. So I said, come on the night after. So yeah, so he's on, that'll be show 301, and he's coming on Monday. And Tuesday, I don't know if this interests you or not. I hope it does. It interests me, which is the reason we booked this guy. We're going to be talking to Peter Lumage. Now, Peter is running for Secretary of State of the state of Connecticut. I normally don't have running candidates on the show because generally all they'll say is stuff to get them elected, and they lie, and they're not good conversationalists. But in this case, I made an exception. I don't know. I've never talked to Peter. I haven't talked to Peter yet. I don't know. His publicist booked this, so I don't. And I jumped at this because Peter is a former refugee from Albania, as is my family, and that's what we have in common. There aren't a lot of Albanians on the planet, and in New York City, they'll beat the crap out of you. No, I don't know if you know this. It's really true. The Albanians have taken the place of Italians as far as mafia culture in New York. So they're serious, and apparently the way they did this is by being, for lack of a better term, more serious than the Italians, if you know what I mean. But my family's not involved in that. I assume Peters isn't either. I don't. Maybe it is. We'll find out. But he escaped from Albania in the 1970s, I think. Albania was communist until 1992, and it was the most severely extreme communism of any country on the planet until they dropped it in 1992. And so, and because of that, I talk about this all the time, and other people do too. So you have to listen to this. Communism doesn't work, and so because Albania was communism for 50 years, they were very, very broke. It was a very, very poor country. Now they're coming back. They have some resources. They also people are starting to discover how goddamn beautiful the place is, and so tourism is becoming a big deal. But he was there when they were communists, and he got out. And my family got out before it was turned communist, and that was, believe it or not, in 1920s. My father had me at a ridiculously old age. so, my father escaped from Albania in 1920. And I'm sure you want to hear about that. And guess what? You're not gonna, not because I don't want to tell you, I don't want to waste your time. So, and then, okay, so that's Monday and Tuesday next week. We're taking Wednesday and Thursday off because my 100-year-old mother on Wednesday night is having a Christmas party. And, I don't know if you can put this together at 101. I don't know if she's going to be around much longer. So I'm going to her Christmas party. And so the weather's going to be crap. So I have to spend the night there. So I can't do Thursday either. So it's Christmas. She's old, and there you go. And I got to drive. It's a little drive. It's a little ways away from here. So that's my life. And I'm sure that fascinates the crap out of you, doesn't it? I'll tell you something. Here's something that's more fascinating. We'll talk to Gary Benoit here. Okay, how's that sound? And let's try 12 seconds. Joining us from his home office in Appleton, Wisconsin, Gary Benoit, the editor-in-chief of the New American Magazine. And Gary, I didn't mention this to you before we started talking here. I'm in Minneapolis, so
okay.
I'm very.
You're not far away.
No, not at all. And of course, the weather's terrible.
Yes.
I bitch about it constantly.
It's a good time to be down south.
Yeah, Appleton is kind of an interesting area because it's like you have a collection of relatively small cities, but they're all kind of really close together. So you kind of have a metropolitan area, don't you? And Appleton is the
right. It's a pretty good size. It's large enough where everything is here that you would want, but not so large that you feel like you're living in a major city.
Yeah, and you have 11 children.
Yes, that is correct. So we've added to the population.
How does that work out? How do you deal with that?
Well, we did it one at a time. But we will look at God as being in control, and we left it up to God, and we ended up with 11 kids.
Yeah, well, God loves you.
Well, thank you. He loves all of us.
And so, Gary, you have been an editor at the New American for 39 years. Is that right?
Well, I haven't actually figured out how many years. I've been on the staff for about 48 years right now. It'll be 49 years coming April. And almost all that time, I've been the editor of the New American Magazine.
Yeah, and you've been now editor-in-chief for about 5 years, is it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Although that's a title. I really was doing the same work before I got the title.
So you spent your entire career here, huh?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, and I assume that's to your liking?
Oh, absolutely, because I really feel very blessed and very fortunate to be on the staff of the John Birch Society, and should indicate that the New American Magazine is a part of the John Birch Society. It's our magazine affiliate. But I feel so blessed because I'm able to earn a living by being on the staff and at the same time doing something that I feel very strongly benefits all of us, benefits the American people and all peoples of the world, because what we're doing is we're creating an understanding that is so vitally needed in order to preserve freedom.
I've had Wayne Morrow on. He's the executive director, and Joe Wolverton, one of your writers. Mm-hmm. And I really don't think it's an exaggeration to say you guys are doing God's work. I really
thank you so much.
You're welcome. I mean, and also it's a great magazine. And let's point out right now, online it's at thenewamerican.com.
That is correct.
So you've written some interesting articles here in the last few weeks, but one particularly you wrote just a few days ago on communism. You want and the note I have here, well, isn't communism a great idea? I'll just talk for a second here, if you don't
Sure.
mind. I'm going to preface this. I'm having a guy on next Tuesday named Peter Lamage, and he's running for Secretary of State in Connecticut. But I normally do not have people campaigning for office on the show. The reason I made an exception here is because he's an Albanian refugee, and my family is too.
Wow.
And so I don't know if you know about the history of Albania, but I mean, it was before 1992, probably the single most communist country, extreme communism on the planet, and it did not work out well.
No, and that's to be expected, because communism, even if you go by the theory, defies human nature, because the theory is that from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. And so the whole thing is about the redistribution of wealth, the redistribution of property and whatnot. And so it completely destroys the incentive to produce. And it's all about dividing the wealth rather than creating new wealth. So the theory is flawed to begin with. But I would say that the theory is a lie, that the people at the top do not themselves believe in the theory. They're simply using this distribution of the wealth idea is a pretext to control the wealth. That's really what communism is all about. It's not a distribute the wealth program. It is a control the wealth program.
Well, do you think
whenever communism is practiced, you always have a few, an elite who have total power, and the people become slaves.
Do you think it's evolved to that? I mean, do you think that Lenin, going back 100 years plus, do you think that he actually thought this would work?
No, I do not believe that.
Interesting. Very interesting.
No, I believe they use it to beguile the masses. They use the theory of communism. I mean, if you read the Communist Manifesto, and perhaps you have, it's just ludicrous. It's the abolition of private property. It's the abolition of religion. It's the abolition of the family. I mean, who could actually believe that would be a good thing?
Well, here's my thing on this. When you read that offhand on the surface,
yes,
in and of itself, it makes sense, but it doesn't work.
No.
And so why do you think after over 100 years of dealing with this, I mean, I could understand 150 years ago and people thought, well, maybe let's give this a shot, but now after all this experience and history of this not working, why are people still trying it? Is it because, like you said, it's basically a bunch of people want to control a bunch of other people?
Well, yes, I think that's what it's all about. And of course, we're not talking about the people who are beguiled. We're talking about the people at the top. I believe they know exactly what they are doing, and that they're using, what they call socialism or socialist theory is an excuse to consolidate power into their own hands. Again, it's all about control of the wealth, not distribution of the wealth. It's not a case of everyone getting his own equal share.
Right. So what do you think about what's going on in New York City with Mamdani?
Well, I think people once again will find out that socialism does not work. Of course, how much power he has to implement his agenda, that's another question, because, for example, we have the city council in New York City. So I assume he does not have carte blanche, but socialism never works. And an example I love to use would be, let's say that we're teaching a class of students, and we decide to put socialism into practice within that classroom. And so what we do is when we grade the test, let's say the average grade is a C. We give everyone a C. And so the students who worked really, really hard to do well, who should have gotten an A on the test, they get C's, right? And the ones who are lazy, or they didn't work, didn't put any effort into it for whatever reason. I mean, maybe there was a football player there who spent all his time practicing football and not studying for the test. He got a C as well, even though he should have gotten an F. Well, what kind of work do you think would come out of that in the future by practicing that kind of socialism? So it does not work. That has been demonstrated over and over and over again. But again, my point is that this whole thing is a lie anyway, that the people orchestrating it, the deep state, the people who collaborate with the communists, and of course, not the typical communists, but the communist leaders, I believe they know exactly what they're doing. I mean, if they sincerely believed in communism, why wouldn't they take their own wealth and redistribute it to help the poor?
That's a good question. And okay, so let me ask you this though. Why do you think, what is with humans that we have this desire to control other people?
Well, I'm going to say it goes back to man's nature. It goes back to the Garden of Eden. Goes back to the fact that we are sinful creatures, but thank God we also have the ability to be saved, and it's up to us. But we have, through the grace of God, the ability, I believe, to overcome our sinful nature and to still accomplish great things. But you can look at it in terms of the law of gravity. I mean, what happens if you hold an apple in your hand and you let go of the apple falls to the ground, right? I think that's a natural tendency. And so we have to work at becoming better. We have to work at overcoming our sinful nature.
I'm really jumping ahead here, but do you think the American experiment can survive like 200-300 years into the future?
Yes. And the reason I say that is because of history. Look what was accomplished during the American War for Independence to begin with. I mean, who could have imagined that in colonial America that we would have the ability to take on the greatest nation, the greatest military power at the time in the world, and yet we were able to accomplish that. And of course, one of the reasons we accomplished it is because of the morality of the American people themselves. Another reason we're able to accomplish that is because of the committees of correspondence and all the work that was done prior to when the actual shooting started to educate the people, to inform them. And that is so vitally important. Of course, that's the mission of the John Birch Society, is to inform the people. If that were not done, I think the American Revolution could have gone in the same direction as did the French Revolution, where the blood just flowed in the streets from the guillotine, and where people wanted freedom, but they didn't understand what it was and got tyranny instead.
That's
something worse than they had before.
That's a good comparison because they've never really seemed to get it right. They've tried
Right.
4 or 5 times and it's never. And also, I don't think you can be. You have remiss in not mentioning the 40 or 50 guys that actually orchestrated this, and how incredibly cosmically coincidental it is that they all ended up in the same place at the same time.
Right. It really is. And I personally believe it was providential.
Yes, so do I. And
another comparison or maybe contrast I'd like to point to would be Nazi Germany, which also was National Socialism. Nazi was shorthand for National Socialism. But, let's remember that the German people themselves voted the Nazis into power to such an extent that they made Hitler chancellor. And of course, they ended up in tyranny. And that was because of a lack of knowledge of the German people.
Well,
I don't think the German people are any better or worse than the American people or other peoples. We're all created in the likeness and image of God. We're all capable of committing sin, but we're all also capable of accomplishing great things for the grace of God.
Yes,
but they were they voted themselves into tyranny. And so it's so important that the American people be informed.
A lot of people think they're kind of crazy too.
That's right.
I had a military strategist on last night, Jonathan Lockwood, an old friend of mine. And we were talking about this. It sounds like I'm getting off topic. I kind of don't care. I want your thoughts on this. So my thing about Hitler and World War II is that so he got Poland, he got Czechoslovakia, he got France. He should have just stopped. I mean, the people study this. I don't know, and I don't know if you do or not, but he started the war as a brilliant military strategist, and the whole thing basically devolved into madness. And so you wonder, okay, so he was evil, and the Holocaust is an absolutely terrible thing. But if you remove that from it, if he had just kind of stopped and forgot about Britain and forgot about Russia, he would have had Germania. He would have had the European Union. And you would why didn't he do that? Because he's crazy, I guess. I don't know.
Well, he probably was totally intoxicated with power.
Yeah, and drugs too.
He probably saw himself as a god on earth.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty obvious that he did. You know, you wrote a piece also about the UN recently, and I just find this kind of fascinating because I think the UN is an incredible waste of time. But you mentioned about in your piece about the fact that John F. Kennedy didn't think that at the time. That the theories, the feelings on the UN have evolved over the last 60, 70 years. And when it started, there was maybe a real push or uh, concentration about the fact that this was maybe a noble thing, but
Right.
it devolved into basically bullshit, if you don't mind my saying so.
Well, and I'm going to say it became or is becoming what it was intended to be, because once again, there is the lie, there's the pretext, which is used to beguile the masses, but there's also what it's really all about, the true intent on the part of the architects. And if you go back to the beginning, what the architects really wanted to accomplish was to create what they themselves called a new world order. This is not conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy fact. They wanted a world government controlled by themselves.
Yeah.
And the United Nations being the centerpiece of that world government to be. And the John Birch Society warned about that right after its founding. In fact, even at the founding meeting, Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society, warned that this was what the United Nations was all about. And of course, people would scoff and all that and say, well, gee, isn't that mankind's best hope for peace? But when you look at the progression of the United Nations over the years, it has become increasingly obvious that their purpose is to destroy the independence of nations. Their purpose is to provide a global socialistic, I would say, totalitarian regime. And they use excuses to accomplish that. A recent excuse or rationale would be climate change. They just had the COP conference in Brazil.
Yeah.
And supposedly we need a world government. We need a climate regime in order to fight what? Well, I guess to fight CO2, the gas of life.
Gary, you just touched on there's my two big things doing this show. Mm-hmm. I only have two real passions here, and that's that the extraterrestrials are here and get used to it, and that climate change is a complete utter hoax. It's like, and I always want to be precise about this. Global warming is real; it is happening, it's documented, but humans aren't causing it, and the fact that people have latched onto this. I mean, I don't know if you know this. So this happened about 2 years ago. The UN put on their website, they put up a page that said, we can solve the climate crisis if we have $75 trillion. I bet they can.
That's just pocket change to them, right?
Yeah, I know. They pulled it down after a few days. I mean, I guess I still have a copy of it. I grabbed it. Yeah.
Well, I would say the temperature goes up and the temperature goes down. And so it begs the question, what is the normal temperature? And if you go back to the 1970s, there was a period, I think it began around the 1940s or thereabouts, but well into the 1970s, where we had a cooling trend. Yeah. And people at the time were warning that, we're going to go into a new ice age.
Right.
Right. But then the temperature started going up, and now we hear just the opposite. But so yes, it is warmer now than, let's say, the year 2000. I agree with you. But the thing is, it's not catastrophic.
It's warming up, but it's still we're still on the cold side. Historically,
right,
one of the coldest periods in Earth history. So it's not, and so it's actually probably a net positive that's going up. But the fact is, humans. I mean, I had Patrick Moore, the climatologist, on the show a couple of years ago. It's still the single biggest watched episode of the show. And he said the temperature on Earth's been rising for 300 years, but for the first half of those 300 years, there was no industrialization on the planet. So in some ways, that's a smoking gun. It doesn't really matter how much we're, and the fact that people are treating carbon dioxide as pollution is nuts.
I know.
Carbon dioxide.
Let's get rid of all carbon dioxide. What would happen then? Do you think life on Earth would exist?
We wouldn't be able to breathe. That's what would happen. It's terrible. You said in this article here, I thought this was great the way you put this. Here's a quote from you. Ignored in this utopian dream, talking about the UN, that such a monopoly of power could also be used to impose global tyranny.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right.
Right. And that's true of socialism in general, because what we're talking about is empowering the state. And how is the state going to use that power? And do we really want to trust those people who are able to operate the levers of that power? And I always like to go back to to Locke or excuse me, Lord Acton, go back to Lord Acton, what he said, because he said that power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But you know what's so interesting is liberals and socialists, they like to complain about monopolies, and they're concerned about monopolies with regard to business. Oh, this business has monopoly and so forth. Well, what is the greatest monopoly of all? What is monopoly that can force everybody to participate and do whatever it wants? And of course, that would be government. Government can do that. A business can go out of business if it doesn't satisfy customers, but governments do not go out of business, do they? Unless there is a coup d'etat or something like that. So why is it that they're so against monopoly when it comes to free enterprise, but they embrace the monopoly of government that can put a gun to their head? It doesn't make any sense.
And that's the worst thing about this whole scenario is if you have a global government, you have a monopoly,
Right.
And getting back to the whole thing about communism, socialism, if you capitalism is highly flawed, but it's still the least. It's still the least flawed system of all of them. That's
that's true. You make a really good point when you say that, because we do not have utopia on Earth, and all we can do is the best we can. And history has demonstrated that the best form of government is a government large enough to protect our freedoms, but not a government so large that it can devour the freedoms it's supposed to protect.
I don't see foresee any time, even thousands of years in the future, where global government would be a good idea. I don't.
No, I don't either.
Because of lack of competition. And I mean, that's even the problem, like with the healthcare system. If you let the government take over the healthcare system, well, you have no recourse. At least with capitalism and competition, you have recourse.
Yeah, and I think we saw that too with COVID, didn't we? In terms of government stifling competition, because there were medical authorities. There are people with sound credentials who said you really don't need to wear masks, and there were others who said, well, ivermectin can help, or hydroxychloroquine can help, and so forth, and they used that for their patients, or at least tried to. And the government really came down on them, and some of them, their licenses to practice medicine was taken away. That's a result of government monopoly, and that's not what we want.
It was almost draconian, and it's hard. I mean, what's happening to science in the country right now is really, really terrible. But the real amazing thing is the people that are bitching about it are the people, to me, are the people actually doing it. I mean, it's like real science, hardcore rational science seems to have gotten lost. I was just reading my friend David Strom in Hot Air the other day. He's talking about the fact that in the journal Nature, which was for many years one of the single best peer-reviewed journals in science, they were talking about about some critical race theory. I mean, he published part of it. It was like, it's absurd. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is crap. That has nothing to do with science at all.
It does. You're right, but it does divide people, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and that plays well into the hands of would-be totalitarians.
Good point. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Yes. Where are you on the migrant crisis? What's going on right now?
On the what crisis?
The migrant crisis. If you want to,
there again, I think that's another problem that is being used to try to destroy the country by flooding the nation with migrants, both legal and illegal, and to the point where it makes it harder to govern. And I think that's what the would-be totalitarians want to accomplish. They want to make the country ungovernable so that they can come to power. And of course, there are some traps that we can fall into regarding that we need to be aware of. And one is the importance of local police, by the way, because we do not want to have a national police force. We want to have strong local police forces that are responsible to the people that they're supposed to protect and serve. But what happens when power is consolidated in Washington, D.C., where the federal government controls police forces throughout the country? And it'd be so easy to go down that road to try to fight the problem of all the crime and whatnot, and all the problems created by massive illegal immigration.
Sounds like I'm changing the subject here, but actually, I'm not. This also goes to. Oh God, I just lost my train of thought. I'm getting old, you know.
Oh, it happens to me all the time.
Okay, we were talking about immigrants.
Yes.
About oh gee, I'm just going to forget it. Okay, so you you got they've let thousands and thousands of people in willy-nilly. And I'm a first generation American. Like I said, my family came
Right.
from Romania. But that was like 100 years ago. I mean, my father was very old when he had me. So I mean, he came in 1909. My father came in 1920. Uh, uh, but the thing, it was different then, because at that point when people came, although they were mostly Europeans, still when they came to the United States, the idea was to integrate. They wanted to be Americans. I still remember my father telling me the story about going to buy his very first suit for $15. He was so proud about the fact he was going to be a real American businessman, you know. And now it's the opposite. It's like these people are coming over here and they want to turn the United States into the country they left. And I find it highly distasteful.
Well, and I think you're making a really good point, because once upon a time, people would come here because they wanted to become part of the American dream. They believed in this wonderful experiment and liberty that we had in America. They would come here often with just the clothes on their back and maybe nothing else or very little else, and they would pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And those who genuinely needed help, which of course would be the people coming over without any money or resources. There were private charities, there were churches, there were communities, and people would come together and help them, and they would assimilate. They become part of the American dream. It doesn't work that way today, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And then unfortunately, there's a religious aspect to this now too, and it's I'm going to get called racist for talking about this, but still. The fact is, there's a certain percentage of the Islamic community that seems to want to take over the world, religiously wise, anyway. You know, and they come over here and they appear to be anti-Christian, and I don't think that appearance is actually. I think that's reality. I think they actually are anti-Christian.
Well, of course, it depends on the person, but so many people who come out of Islam, they've been militarized, or they become militants, and you're
right, though.
If they're few in number, it's not really a problem. But when it reaches a point, well, gee, let's use the power of numbers to bring about, let's say, Sharia law. That becomes a problem, because that is not compatible with our form of government.
Well, the fact that people are even considering that, I find absolutely absurd. I find this comically absurd. Where you're going to change the laws to a society. I mean, I hate.
Well, and that's going to happen whenever you bring in large numbers of people, regardless of their religious or background. I mean, it's going to result in a change, right? And the change could be good, or the change could be bad. But in this case, I would say that the change is bad, and it does make sense to have people come here whose beliefs are compatible with what we have. And in terms of helping the peoples of the world, including people, of the Muslim religion, the best way of doing that, obviously, is for the United States of America to provide a beacon of hope, to show what can be done in an atmosphere of freedom, to present to the world that example. But destroying ourselves is not the way to do it.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. I mean, we're bringing in people from cultures that, to be perfectly blunt, are 200 to 300 years behind us. You know, and it's like this is not going to work. Now, and in Britain, of course, they have a mess. I mean, I'm starting to think they might have already gone past the point of no return.
Well, Christianity, is compatible with freedom.
Yeah,
and not all religious beliefs are. I mean, take the Aztec religion, for example. They practice human sacrifice on a huge scale. Should we say, well, gee, that culture is equal to ours? Obviously, not all cultures are equal.
No, that's right. Obviously, but apparently it's not obvious to a lot of people. You know. Now I had, like I said, Jonathan Lockwood on last night, and he comes on specifically. He's an expert on the Ukraine-Russia situation. So how do you ascertain what's going on with this right now, as far as this pending peace deal and the war itself? I mean, I'm surprised the war has gone on for as long as it has.
Yeah, I am too. And my position there is America first. I mean, obviously, we wish well to everybody, all the peoples of the world, but you know, the purpose of our foreign policy should be to put America first. The purpose of our military should be to protect America, and you know, we shouldn't be involved with all these entangling alliances. And I think over the long term, when you do that, it makes things worse, not better. And we've seen that over and over again with U.S. foreign policy. So I would say we should get out of the United Nations. We should get out of NATO, and you know, we should bring the troops home.
Well, what do you think about our involvement in Ukraine, in the sense that we don't actually have troops there per se? We have some.
Well, I mean, we don't now, but we're talking about an agreement though, where the United States would come to their aid if you know, if they do sign the agreement and tensions or war flares up again, that we would then be committed. In fact, in a sense, we are today under the NATO agreement, because the way the NATO agreement, the way the charter is written, it obligates us, or ostensibly obligates us, to go to the defense of any of those NATO countries. And I think right now there are 31 or 32 NATO countries, but we're supposed to go to the offense of any country that is attacked. We're supposed to treat an attack in any of those countries as if it were an attack on the United States itself. So we should not be doing that. We should get out of NATO. And what if Ukraine had already become a part of NATO? Then we would be obligated under that treaty to provide those troops.
Yeah. Do you think that Trump, with this peace proposal, do you think he's overreaching?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because I mean, do you think the president of the United States has a right to commit the United States to going to war against Russia if Russia were to go back in and attack Ukraine? You know, I would say no. And not only that, but under the Constitution, it's not the president who makes the decision to go to war anyway. It's Congress.
Right.
It is a congressional power, not a presidential power.
Yeah. Yeah. So
the president is not didn't have the power, or doesn't have the power that the King of Great Britain did, you know, back during colonial times, where the King of Great Britain could say, okay, I'm going to war. You know, the president was limited in terms of what he can do. The Congress actually has many more powers than the president does. The only reason it seems the other way is because we're constantly violating the Constitution. And the Congress needs to reclaim those powers granted to it by the Constitution.
Well, the 10th Amendment's been run over roughshod.
Well, that too, yes.
No, I mean, you're right. There's so much going on. And now it sounds like I'm changing the subject, but I'm not. What do you think about the filibuster? Do you think that they should just get rid of? I mean, Trump's position is it's going to get rid of. They're going to get rid of it sooner or later anyway. Let's do it now and take advantage of it. That seems to be where he's at. What do you think of this?
Well, the Senate is supposed to be the deliberative body, even more so than the House, right?
Yeah.
So my feeling is that the filibuster, I mean, this is up to the Senate, but I personally see it as a good thing, because it gives time for deliberation. And, you know, people say, well, that's gridlock. But you know what the founding fathers used to call gridlock? They used to call it checks and balances.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, gridlock's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, not necessarily a bad thing.
That's right.
Yeah, the whole idea, you know, I mean, of course, if we believe in democracy, and of course we don't, most people think they do because, you know, again, they've been beguiled. But in a pure democracy, what would happen? We'd all get together and we cast a vote, and that'll be that. So we move away from that a little bit by having what some people call a representative democracy.
Yeah.
But we don't want that either, because we don't want the majority, even through representatives, to violate the rights of the minority, do we?
Yeah.
And so we only want to give certain powers to the federal government in particular, only those powers that really need to be handled on the national level. And we want to specify what those powers are, and we want to limit them. and we want our representatives to deliberate and make absolutely sure, okay, we really do want to pass this law. So I see the filibuster in the Senate as being part of that.
Well, there's a lot of people, even the people currently in the Senate, that seem to agree with you. So, you know,
yeah, what do you think?
I'm basically with you. I don't think they should do it. You know, the one thing, what you were talking about made me lead to this, and now it sounds like once again like I'm changing the subject. And I don't think I am. The one thing that we have, the United States has going that no other country in the world has, is we actually have an encoded First Amendment. I mean, it's actually in there. And that seems to be the difference between us and every other country on Earth. Well, if the first and the second, or maybe even just the Bill of Rights, just generally, you know,
Right.
like we have this and no other country actually has it really written down.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm going to also add to what you just said. We also have in the Declaration of Independence, which you could view as the birth certificate for the Constitution. You can look at the Declaration as providing the philosophy for a form of government, and the Constitution, which came later, is the implementation of that form of government. But in the Declaration of Independence, it says very clearly that we're all endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that those rights include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that the purpose of government, and of course I'm paraphrasing, but the purpose of government is to protect those rights. So that is the philosophical basis, and I think that's what makes the American experiment in liberty so different from what was done elsewhere. This understanding that rights come from God, not from government, and not from man. You know, that God created man and man created government, and so government cannot do what we ourselves cannot do. So, you know, government cannot engage in plunder, for instance, to take from some to give to others. Government's purpose is to protect our rights, and that's reflected, just like you said, in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and so forth. That's why government power is limited. It's limited to what it's supposed to do, and not allowed to do what it's not supposed to do.
And there's what they call natural law, and that's the
Yes.
thing that everybody understands how this works. Which I get back to. I've always used as the example of why socialism is strictly doesn't work, is because it completely, there's no acceptance of the concept of possession, and even a little baby knows that sucker belongs to him.
Yes.
I mean, it's really true. This is hard coded into the human psyche, the thing about possession, and so
Right.
you just can't take that away. You know, you just can't pass a fiat that says you no longer own anything. That's just not going to work. It just won't work at all. Now, there's one other thing I got to talk to you about here. This fascinated me about your background. You graduated from college with a magna cum laude in physics.
That's correct.
And so
I haven't done anything with physics ever since.
that was my question. How did you end up in
I have not.
how did you end up doing this?
Yeah,
You know?
I graduated from college in 1976, and I came on the staff of the John Birch Society in 1977.
Yeah. Did you ever do anything in physics at all?
I feel it really helped me in terms of training my mind and helping me to be able to think logically and clearly. So I feel like I benefited from it. And I also believe that if you really go into the science, if you take science to where it ultimately leads, where would that be? And where it would be is a recognition that God exists. I mean, how can it lead otherwise? Because God created everything. He created our universe. Originally there was nothing, and now there's something, and only God could do that. And I think ultimately, physics is just the study of God's handiwork, or any other science.
I say this all the time. I can prove that God exists. The proof is you and I are talking right now.
Yes, I agree.
That's all the proof you need, as far as I'm concerned. I did want to ask you though about AI, since you have a little background in science. Or a big background. What is your feelings on AI? Do you think this is possibly the end of civilization, or there's so many?
Well, I don't think it has to be. I think it's still technology, although it's taking technology to another level, and it could be used for evil or it could be used for good. But obviously, those people who want to control everybody, they want to use it for evil. Could it get to the point where the machines take over or AI takes over and people are not running anything and AI is running everything? There's science, science movies that depict that, or science fiction movies, that kind of world where the machines run everything. But I personally don't see that.
I've been
But,
saying,
but regardless of the future, though, regardless of what happens, the way I look at it is that we have a moral responsibility to do our duty to the best that we can in every area of our life. So we have a duty to God, we have a duty to family, we have a duty to country. Those are the three great human loyalties. And we do the best we can. And we do what's right. We do our duty. We can't do any more, but we should do that. We should want to do that. And then we leave the results up to God, because God, we do the work. We should do the work, but then God decides the results.
well, God bless you, seriously, for doing.
Thank you. God bless you too.
For doing the right thing. It's not exactly. Sometimes it's not easy to do either, but you have to do it. So, Gary, I appreciate you talking with us today.
Well, I appreciate being on. It's so nice of you.
I hope you'll come back, especially
I'll be glad to anytime.
That's great. That's great. You take care. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our thanks to Gary Benoit there for joining us from the New American Magazine. Fascinating stuff. Okay, this is a part of our show we call the JimCast. It's basically like, it's part 3 of 3, I guess. If you've never watched our show before, this is what we do. I will now comment on the news that you probably haven't heard of at all. That's my goal here. As I'm talking about news that you probably haven't heard of, or in the case, and we're going to get to a specific story in a moment, that the major media doesn't cover. So first up tonight, and also I talked about some of this last night too. I'm repeating it because, as I said, our show last night did not transmit anywhere, so no one heard it. No, there's no recording of it. So there's a couple things I mentioned here over again. Also, this first one had an update today, so that helps. Candace Owens now says she has new information that confirms that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by people in Turning Point, USA. That's what she's saying, or Egyptians, whatever. Now, the reason I brought this up last night, and I'm going to bring it up again because no one heard last night, is because we've gotten to a point now where people start to realize that you can get a lot of attention on social media by saying completely outrageous shit. Now, that's been known for quite a while, but people are now upping the game. I mean, case in point here, Candace Owens says that people in Turning Point USA were turning on Charlie Kirk, and that either people from the organization, or believe it or not, from Egypt, actually conspired to kill him. So let me tell you, this is complete and total utter BS. She's also been accusing for basically at least a year French President Francois Macron of the fact that his wife is actually a man. That's also bullshit. And she says that Macron, in turn, has turned around and paid someone over $1 million to have her assassinated. That's also bullshit. This woman is now completely talking bullshit. I mean, she's basically her entire commentating career now has gone into the gutter regarding telling you stuff just to get attention. Now, does it work? Absolutely. One of her tweets on this subject matter got over 30 million views. 30 million. And I'm here to tell you that even though this works, this is no way to get information. I'd like to think you know that. Marjorie Taylor Greene basically has just done recently the same thing. She's dropped out of Congress. Nobody really knows why. She says it because she's lost the support of President Trump, but that's kind of self-manufactured. It's like there's no real reason for her to do this other than the fact that she's come to the conclusion she can now build a good career for herself just drawing attention to herself because she's become pretty good at it. And she's going to find out. I think in that particular case, she will find out she's wrong. Candace Owens, believe it or not, will probably make a go of this. She probably will. And the reason I think the difference here is I don't think Miss Green has as much self-awareness as Candace Owens does. I do not think Candace Owens believes a single thing that she's saying. I don't think that. She's saying it strictly for effect and strictly to get attention. But now, and also I'm skipping ahead here because I was gonna leave this for the end, but it's pertinent on point here. The Oxford Dictionary crowned the words or the term rage bait as the number one new term in the English language for 2025. And so rage bait is basically a ramp up of clickbait. So in clickbait, you say stuff that's kind of interesting or odd or whatever to get people to click through and read. Rage bait is when you do the same thing, except the goal is to make them upset. And then they click through. And people do. As I said, this works. I can't get myself to do it. I won't do it. I'm too old. I'm too tired. I feel I value my integrity too much. I would like to. I'm sitting here. I'm telling you. I mean, I just use, and I'm gonna. We'll get to that's the next story here. But I don't want to. I don't want to do this. I just don't, and I will probably end up suffering for it financially. I probably will. If I did what Candace Owens is doing, I would. She will profit greatly from this, even though she's basically. I don't even know. I think I can't even distinguish what she's saying with the term lies. It's all just bullshit. She's talking bullshit. That's all it is. She's talking bullshit to get people. I'd like to think not like you, dear viewer here of Jim Peters Tonight, but other people to get them to click through because she and a whole bunch of other people have figured out in America that about a quarter of the population, or roughly 25% of American adults, are nuts. Now, believe it or not, I'm not actually pulling that figure out of my butt. I remember I interviewed on the radio 30 years ago. I interviewed a psychologist, and I don't even know what the interview was about. I don't remember why he was there. The only thing I remember is this, and he's talking about how did he put it? Malformed adults or something like that. And I said, come on, doctor. I was kidding. I said about a quarter of the population is crazy, right? And he said, he stopped to think about it. He said, yeah, that'd be about right. And I thought, oh Jesus, I'm just talking smack, and he's agreeing with me. Okay, yeah, but I've come to the conclusion that's really true. About a quarter of the population cannot think correctly. Now, the last poll that was taken, believe it or not, this is unbelievable, but it's really true. A third of American adults self-identified as being emotionally or mentally ill. 1/3, 33%. 1 out of every 3 people in the country self-identified as mentally ill. Wonderful. That's fantastic. I mean, I guess I'm being conservative. I don't know. But if you're looking for eyeballs, doesn't matter whose eyeballs they are. And the same thing with the votes too. It doesn't matter whose votes they are. Those same corner of people who are crazy, they vote. So if you can lure them into voting for you, even though they can't reason at all, this scares the crap out of me because we're talking about AI. I have predicted this, and I'm still sticking with this, that in the next 20 years we are going to see, in the short term anyway, massive unemployment because of AI, and it might lead to a depression in the United States because if people aren't working, they don't have money, and you're going to get to the point where the vast majority of people, I mean, this is like master of the obvious stuff to me, but the vast majority of people have no marketable skills. Have you noticed? They don't. So right now you can get a job as a cashier in a supermarket. Well, what happens when the robot takes that job? And that's the difference between this and all other technology. There was what was, I think the term is labor transference in the job market previously, that if a technology came around and was able to fill a hole, that technology itself needed somebody else to back it up. So therefore, the number of people employed was roughly the same. The example, and Barack Obama uses the example, and even though he got it completely wrong, he said, the thing is, ATMs put bank tellers out of business, and he looked at it as a terrible thing. But the thing is, it takes people to install and maintain the ATMs, and so therefore, from an employment standpoint, it pretty much evens out. But this is the first time ever, I think, in human history where technology will actually take your job, and there's no going to be doing nobody, because the thing is, okay, you're going to say, well, Jim, let's say you have an android robot that actually ends up being the cashier. Okay, fine. Somebody has to maintain the robot. Did it ever occur to you that robots can maintain robots? Yes, they can. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The minute we have robots on the assembly line making other robots, the moment that happens, the whole game is up. Now, I'm assuming we will work something out here over the long term, and the long term, I'm talking 30 to 50 years. But in the short term, this is not going well. It doesn't. And speaking of, and so I was talking about information being gloriously bad. So if you read the New York Times, or if you've been watching Fox News or any of the conservative cable channels, you probably know the fact that, and this has been in the news, floating around for about at least 6 months, if not a year, about the fact that the Somali community in Minnesota, and of course I'm here in Minneapolis, so I know all about this, has been accused and now convicted of massive fraud against the state of Minnesota and the federal government, about $1 billion worth. The Feed Our Future scandal, which has so far put 53 people in jail, and I think there's roughly another 20 that are still awaiting trial. Of the 53 people in jail, 49 of them are Somali, if I'm right, if I'm correct, almost all of them. But here's the problem here. That's being covered. That's not a problem. And of course, the president called Tim Walz seriously retarded for not taking care of this, and he got slammed for using that term. And I said this last night. I'm going to say it again. That term no longer. It's been years since that term has been actually applied to disabled people. Some reporters said, "Well, people find that offensive," and I was amazed when they wrote about this on the Fox News website. They actually started out, which surprised me, because no one uses this term to describe legitimately disabled people anymore. It is a pejorative term to describe people who are stupid. That's what it is. And somebody said, "Well, we are so back," and yeah, maybe we are, because that's exactly where this term belongs. But anyway, this has been floating around now for a couple of weeks. It's been in and out of the news forever. Last weekend, the New York Times did a major story on it. Now, if you read the newspapers and follow cable news at all, you probably figured out that the television news industry usually takes its cues for stories to cover from the newspaper business. Or what was the newspaper business. They're still online. They're still newspapers, even though a lot of them don't even print anymore. But we'll call them newspapers, okay? And this has been going around since broadcasting started. It's still a very prominent thing. I get most of the stuff I talk about here, I get from what you would call print media. Even though it's not like a lot of the sources I use online aren't actually printed. Most of them aren't, now that I think about it. But that's where I get most of my. I would rather read than watch. I think it's more efficient. But the New York Times did this story this weekend, and amazingly, none of the three major television networks picked it up at all. if the last 3-4 nights on the major broadcast news shows, at 6 o'clock, they have not talked about this at all. And the surprising part about this is, as I said, the New York Times wrote a story on it, and usually the broadcast media news will pick that up, and they didn't. And it's pretty obvious they're trying to avoid it. Also, the fact people say, "Well, it's racist," you've fingered a whole community of refugees for this fraud. And the thing is, almost all the people that have committed the fraud are part of this community. So, and then, people say, well, you can't, not every Somali's involved. And that's true. Not every Somali is involved. But on the other hand, almost all the people involved are Somalis. So I don't, how do you handle that? There, you can, it is like, even the New York Times said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't remember the exact quote. They said they come from a culture of stealing. Even the New York Times said that, and yet the broadcast news sites will not cover this. And then the amazing thing is too, and this has to be brought up, on Sunday on Meet the Press, Tim Walz came on specifically because Kristen Welker actually questioned him about this. So it's been on NBC News. It just hasn't been on the nightly newscast. And that's weird too. That's kind of odd. It's astonishing with some people, there were lengths they'll go through just to keep from being called racist. That's the story, the end story here. All right, so if you watch this show, my big deal is UFOs. It's not even, I can't even say I'm convinced that they're coming here. I know they're coming here. And if you studied this enough, you would too. But a lot of the problem is there's a good portion of people who cannot accept this at all. And it's not a matter of evidence. There's plenty of evidence. That's the reason I know what's happening. There's oodles and oodles of evidence, but there's some people that can't accept it. So this movie came out. It was released a week ago Friday on November 21st, called The Age of Disclosure. Now, actually, it had been on the film festivals over the summer, but it was finally released to the public a couple weeks ago. So I paid $20 on Amazon Prime to watch it, and it's pretty good. I have to say, as a film, it's a little too long, maybe a touch repetitive, but still, Dan Farrar, the producer and director, he got 34 people, all former or present military and former or present elected officials, politicians, to come on the screen and say that we're being visited by aliens. And the most prominent one was Senator or Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the current Secretary of State. Now, he just put a thing out today or yesterday, I think it was, where he said that he's pissed off about the fact that the government over the years, they let private industry basically take control or take possession of these crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft that the government had. And the reason that was done is to keep it out of the Freedom of Information Act trolling stream. That if a private corporation has something or has information, you can't get it through the Freedom of Information Act. Now, we've had John Greenwald, the guy who runs the Black Vault, has been on this show before, been about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. He's been on the show, and that's where he gets most, if not all, of his information from the Freedom of Information Act. But if it's in private industry's hands, you can't get that information, and that is ostensibly why it was passed on. But Rubio says that it was a matter of grave national security that this was done, and it shouldn't have been done, and he wants it to stop. But then, of course, the thing is, does that mean we have crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft? And apparently it does. It does. He talked about this yesterday. I'm going to read you a quote. The quote is from one of his staff members, but it does apply totally. And that quote is, "We are headed toward massive disclosure," and we are. And I'm not the only person to bring this up. This is the closest any elected official or government official from the United States has ever come to saying that the extraterrestrials are here. It's the closest anyone's ever come. It's basically a tacit acknowledgement. He did not say the extraterrestrials are here, but he did say we had crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft and we passed them on. He said that. So, I mean, okay, all right. So you're not going to believe the current Secretary of State, huh? And I know that a lot of people don't. This gets down to actually religious stuff. There's a lot of people who do not want to buy this. They cannot accept the fact that we are not alone in the universe, and we not only are we not alone, but they're visiting here. And I have friends who say, very intelligent people who say, "No, I know mathematically there's other people in the universe, but they can't come here because they can't fly faster than the speed of light." Oh yeah, right. Okay. So that's all been figured out too. We know how to do that. We just don't have the energy resources to do it. I read a book by a guy named, I just finished it, by a guy named I think Clifton Laird is his name, who explains in great detail, based on all the information that people have uncovered or learned, of how these spacecraft actually fly. And we can't do it, but the even the logic and the science behind it is not that complicated. It isn't. We can't do it because we can't generate that much electricity. So there's one. I have heard that every single different species of ET that comes here has their own different propulsion system. But the one that everyone talks about is the one that Bob Lazar did his video on in 1992, which is still on YouTube if you want to see it, about how he explains how that particular craft flew. And basically, it revolves around an antimatter reactor. And that reactor is only about the size of a microwave oven, believe it or not. It's not very big. But it generates, what was it? I think the thing I read is that it generates 100 times more power than all the nuclear bombs on Earth put together, something like that. It's an ungodly amount of energy that this tiny little spacecraft generates. Way more. We could run all the electricity on Earth off this one tiny little microwave oven thing. We could, and of course we don't know how to do that. So first of all, we don't know how to even build the reactor. Lazar said it was completely seamless, and it would have to be perfect. The metal would have to be perfect to contain this explosion in a tiny little box, basically. But so, you can talk about all you want about how they can't get here. No, they can't get here. They are getting here, and they're here. Okay, so and then also along with this story, another thing that came out is that, and this has been rumored for years, but people are now talking again about the fact that the Vatican apparently has definitive proof that extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth. They talk about one single race that they have definitive proof, but that rumor has been going on forever. There was a thing about 7 years ago, I think it was, where the chief astronomer of the Vatican, and not only does the Vatican have a chief astronomer, they have 2 observatories. One is right outside of Rome in Italy, and the other one's in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's in the United States, where the chief astronomer said and of course this was probably vetted by the Pope himself. He said that intelligent life on other planets does not negate the fact that Jesus existed, and of course it doesn't. It really doesn't have anything to do with it, actually. Then the question people say, well, is Jesus just did he just absolve the sins of humanity, of people on Earth, or people in the universe? And I think it'd probably be the former, because I'm guessing that there are saviors in other places, or the people have come up or whatever. But supposedly they have it. They know too, supposedly. So, and I've got to mention this too, because this ties into this whole thing. David Grush has said this in one of his, I don't know if he actually said this in one of the public committee hearings he was on in Congress on the Hill, or if he submitted this in a document. But he has talked about the fact that, and of course he's sworn under oath to tell the truth. he says he has information that in 1933 in Magenta, Italy, and I have to admit, I don't know. I think Magenta's outside of Milan, I think, um, that the Italians recovered a crashed ET spacecraft. Now, Benito Mussolini was the head of Italy at that time. And so this was 1933. But supposedly at the end of the war in 1945, when the Mussolini government fell, the Pope, that was Pope Paul VI, if I'm right at that time, he brokered a deal for the United States to come and pick that up, supposedly. And that's what but Grush has testified to that. So, like I said, I don't know if he did it verbally or if he did it in a document. I can't even remember. I don't know. But he's just testified to this. It all comes full circle now. I've been talking to her about this now for what, 20 minutes, and this is only the tip of the iceberg of evidence. Now, I can't point to you any sort of smoking gun proof, definitive proof, and everybody wants that. But the amount of evidence is so freaking overwhelming, you simply can't deny it. I mean, in civil trials, the thing is supposedly you have a preponderance of evidence for guilt. There's way more preponderance. If this was on trial, I could go on for months, every day, 5 days a week, with more evidence to show the jury. There's so much of it's unbelievable. People say we don't have parts of these spacecraft. Yeah, we do. We do have parts of the spacecraft. We don't have any dead bodies. Well, I've never seen one, but this guy on the movie, if it's Chin Sabaton, is that his name? He testified in the movie. He said, "I've seen the bodies and I've touched the spacecrafts." So at some point, not everybody's lying. You can't get 100,000 people to lie. I can't. I was talking to Conaway about this, and you can't even get 34 people in a movie to lie effectively together. They couldn't pull it off. People are not that trained, well trained in acting to be able to do that in concert. They can't. So anyway, so there's that. So this is going to be really interesting, because I'm predicting now, and I've predicted this on the show previously a couple times in the last month or so, that just before he leaves office in either December 28 or January 29, Donald Trump will come out and say that the extraterrestrials have been here. Because I think he wants credit. The president that tells this to the public will go down in history, and I think he wants the credit. And I also think, as the people said, what the stuff that Rubio and others are talking about now, they're setting this up to set up the public so that it isn't a complete surprise, because some people will go nuts. I think it's a minority. I used to have Jazz Shaw, the late great Jazz Shaw. Jazz passed away about a year ago. He used to come on the show as a regular. He came on about every 6 weeks. And he was the UFO reporter for Salem Media, and he wrote for the Debrief, which is a scientific journal, and all sorts of stuff. The only thing him and I disagreed about on this is that, he said the public is definitely ready to hear this stuff. And I qualified it. I said, I'm not so sure, because maybe the majority of the American public is, but when you tell the American public, you tell the world, and I don't know if the rest of the world is. I don't. Because just getting back, we're going to go full circle here, going back to the Somali thing here in Minnesota. There's, regardless of what people say, there is cultures that are 200 or 300 years behind us. And I don't know if they're ready to hear it. I don't. So, but thankfully it's not my problem, because the thing is, here I can tell you till I'm blue in the face that they're here, but you don't have to believe me, and you probably don't. So there you go. And I just realized my last thing was going to be the rage bait thing in Oxford Dictionary, but I already talked about that. So I'm done. I'm done for tonight. Now tomorrow it's our 300th show. Tim Conaway is the guest of record, and he was the guest. He was the guest on my 70th birthday show, which was on October 9th, if I'm right. That was show number 281. So yeah, okay, we're going to do this again. The phone lines are going to be open all night long. Numbers 325. Call Jim. You don't even have to watch to call in. We're starting at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, and basically we're just going to screw around for an hour and a half. That's basically what's going to happen. So that's tomorrow. We're taking Thursday off. I'm taking my 101-year-old mother to the ballet, to the Nutcracker for Christmas. On Monday, Murray Sabrin, our old friend economist, he was the guest on our very first show, and I've had him back for anniversary shows, but I decided we didn't want to talk about anything the least bit serious just on Wednesday, so I booked him for the following night. So he's going to be on Monday, and Peter Lamage is going to be on Tuesday. He's running for Secretary of State in the state of Connecticut. Now, I normally do not have elected candidates on the show because generally all they talk about is when they'll say anything they need to say to get elected. So they're very bad conversationalists. But the reason I'm having Peter on the show is because Peter is an escapee from the Albanian regime of Enver Hoxha up to the 1990s. And my family was too. I'm a first generation American. He actually came from Albania. So, but my family's Albanian also, and so we have a lot in common. So when they pushed this to me, I jumped at it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to them. And you have to understand, and I think that did Gary and I talk about this earlier about the fact that Albania was, when it was communist up until 92, it was the single most extreme communist country on the planet. The Albanians complain about the fact that the Chinese were too lenient. That's actually what was going on there. It's unbelievable. And of course, because communism doesn't work, I don't know if you figured that out. The country was deathly poor up until, and now it's started. Now it's reviving, and communism is coming back, and especially because they what's called the Albanian Riviera, the part of Albania on the Mediterranean, is the world is now discovered as absolutely beautiful. So people are going there for a vacation. So yeah, but anyway, Peter's from Albania originally, and so I'm looking forward to talking to him. I'm sure we'll talk about his politics and his race and all this sort of stuff, but this is mostly a personal thing for me. So. And then we're taking Wednesday and Thursday next week off too. That's for my mother's birthday party. No, I'm sorry, Christmas party. Sorry about that. So she's 101. She's not going to be around forever. You got that right. So anyway, I want to thank Gary Benoit for joining us again tonight. I want to thank you for watching and listening. Tune in for our 3-minute show tomorrow. It'll be fun. And if you can't tune in, call in anyway. 325-225-5546. 325-CALL-JIM. You can remember it. You don't have to watch. Just call, whatever. We'll talk to you. For my birthday, Conway took his shirt off, but he told me he's not going to do it tomorrow because it's too damn cold here. And it is. It's freezing. You do not want to be in Minneapolis during the winter, ever. That's what I say. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you tomorrow night, folks. Thanks. Take care.